Oh, who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to all you Wolves fans, and if there are any Middlesbrough fans still watching our demise and enjoying it, or any other rival teams, welcome to you guys as well. I'm Ed. I'm get the glory of hosting today alongside Gav, Ali, and Jay. We're obviously going to touch on an awful lot of what's happened over the last 3 or 4 days in Wolves land, starting with obviously the She Show and how we've moved from one She to another. And then, of course, we'll touch on the Brentford game. But as always, thanks for watching the Wolves Fancast, the original Wolves podcast, brought to you by the Sports Social Podcast Network, fcquiz.app, and the Boston Coffee and Vending Company. Now, I think it was Thursday. Was it Thursday or Friday when we got the news? Friday, wasn't it, Jay, when we got the news about the change in leadership at the Molineux? We've gone from one She to another. What was your thoughts at the time when that news was sort of trickling through? Either if you're not like me and you're on Twitter, or like me, you got it through the group chat. What was your thoughts, Jay, as we changed ownership? Well, not ownership, but changed chairman.
I got it through the group chat actually. I was sitting there just enjoying my evening, and that comes through, and I was buzzing, absolutely buzzing. It was like, I don't want to exaggerate, but it was goosebumps to see that we'd actually made a difference. It feels that way anyway. Obviously, I don't think without protests and boycotts and we'll talk of boycotts and stuff, he wouldn't have gone. He wouldn't have walked away. Or talk of sacking, walking away. I'm not sure quite how it's gone, but then yeah, kind of back to reality with a bang, because you just know it's not going to make an immediate difference, especially in the pitch. Obviously, he's so far away from what happens on a match day that it's not going to make a lot of difference to the weekend. But at least in the long run, I think it's not perfect. Obviously, they've replaced him with the next man, haven't they? But it's a start.
Yeah. Gav, reading what's on the screen for you podcast listeners, we obviously had the Fosun Group said that obviously regarding Jeff, he's going to remain chairman and CEO of Fosun Sports Group, but have no operational duties relating to Wolves. Is that the biggest thing we can take away from here? Is that Jeff's influence is completely gone from Wolves? Is that something to be happy about?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that it's not Jeff controlling the club. I mean, I know there's a lot of people saying that could be otherwise because he's still within the Fosun Sports Group, which, Wolves are still in the, under that umbrella, so to speak. But I think time will tell whether, Jeff is still actively involved, even though they've said that he isn't. I just feel like Fosun are not going to completely take Jeff out of it because he's the only one within Fosun with any sort of football knowledge now. And I feel like they're not just going to completely cut ties with him and bring someone else new in who doesn't know anything. But it remains to be seen, I guess.
And Ali, we might as well finish off the quartet. What was your thoughts when that was coming through on Friday night?
Yeah, same as Gavin J. Really, the sort of initial reaction. I think we were out on Friday, so sort of caught up on it on my phone. It was kind of like, she's gone, like Jeff, she's gone. To my partner, who is just sort of staring at me quite blankly and thinking. So you have that sort of initial, like a bit of a, Jay says, a bit of a goosebumps moment, thinking it's a bit, oh wow, that's something actually a little bit exciting, something we might have something to look forward to, and then sort of the realization that, well, the damage is done in terms of this season, so it's the damage is done in terms of the squad and the control, and then sort of reading into that he's still sort of part of Fosun, and they can say that he's not involved. We can't trust what we're being told. Nathan Shee, whoever this guy is he an interim? Is he going to be lined up for it? I mean, as Gav says, time will ultimately tell whether this is a step in the right direction. I mean, he had to go, so that's clearly a good thing, and it's good that the protest and everything has had that impact. But I think, as Gav says, time will tell whether this is sort of a step in the right direction and we're going to improve and go in a better direction, or is this just going to to somebody else who doesn't know what they're doing?
Yeah, there's a potential here of frying pan and fire, isn't there? Depending on, we didn't know much about Jeff when he came in, and he had his pint of Banksy's, didn't he, in a pub in Wolverhampton right at the start, and how things have soured, not just for Jeff but for the Banksy's brewery itself since then. But thank you to everyone that's already in the comments. So there's a lot of the regulars in there, David Burns and Maximus Wright. I'll try and get your comments on screen as and when I can. I think an interesting one here is that Maximus Wright is already talking about the fact that maybe we can leave Jeff to focus on esports and see if this new interim can lead us back from, he's put League One, but maybe he means the Championship. We had all things change, of course, in the top of the tree at Wolves, and then this squad came out. Now I was at the train station with my boy, and a guy in a Wolves kit said, "Have you seen the team sheet?" And he showed me his phone, his Twitter, and I must admit, it had my head scratching trying to work out who was playing where. There was some surprises in there, but Gav, what was your thoughts on the team? Obviously, Jose Sarr coming back in was a bit of an eye opener.
Yeah, I think the only, when I first saw it, I wasn't actually against it, to be honest, because I quite like Doc at right centre back. I know a lot of people don't like Doc, or he's too slow, too old, not a really fashionable name. But I think in that right centre back position where he was, toward the back end of last season, I thought he was actually really good. Opinion. Krejci, we know he can play anywhere. Left centre back, sound. And Santi did well before he got dropped all of a sudden. So that back three in itself was pretty good. Andre Gomez, as much as I don't feel like they're very functional at the minute, we've got no one else. So I think the only real question mark was Sarr coming back in for Johnston. I think that maybe a little bit harsh because Johnson did pull up some big saves against Arsenal, to be fair. And then I suppose the other person would be Lopez. I mean, I'm a Lopez fan, but I suppose him coming in was probably the only other question mark, to be honest.
Yeah, and Jay, I think something maybe to talk about here is Fair Lopez. I think he split the fans around me yesterday, and he also split the group chat. But what are your thoughts on our Spanish floppy-haired, mercurial attacking midfielder?
I think there's definitely potential there, but he's nowhere near ready for the Premier League. Nowhere near. He hasn't got the pace, he hasn't got the physicality. He doesn't seem to spot danger. Sort of when he's in possession, he doesn't see players coming in and ends up losing the ball way too often for me. I think maybe off the bench you can with the last 20 minutes when you're chasing a game, you can look over those things for the risks that he actually does take. But from the start, he's just nowhere near it. I think there was one in I think it was actually the second half, and the ball comes out to the right, and he's favourite all day, and the defender beats him to it so easily, and it's like, just open your legs and get going, and he just never does. Strange one for me. I thought in the starting lineup we were good against Arsenal. I know obviously two of the back three were unavailable, but to change all three was a bit of a shock. Obviously, you're dragging a player out in midfield into your defence as well, kind of replacing him with Lopez. I understand we're at home, but I mean, we're bottom of the league on 2 points. I would literally, you're kind of almost better off. I know we don't like him particularly, Totti, but keep him in the team and play Krejci in midfield for me, just to try and keep it a bit more solid. So we're just so soft at the back. But we didn't look like that against Arsenal for a good period. And then Jose Sarr coming back in. I mean, had a couple of saves, didn't he? But really, I think picking from two bad keepers, aren't you, really, Premier League standards?
Yeah. I think, to quote Andy, who was on a show with me a couple of weeks ago, it's like picking between poo and shit, is how he described the two keepers. That's his comment, not mine, but I'm not saying I disagree with it. Ali, we had one comment here from David Burns saying that we have no other players, and that's the reality of why that team was picked. Is that fair? A fair comment? I'm thinking in particular about the bench, which I've mentioned him already a few times. My lad is obviously big on Football Manager and FC 26 and everything, and he didn't know one of the players that was on the bench. And he does under 18 squads for Wolves on those. So are we sort of scraping the barrel, do we think, Ali, as well, with some of our squad selections?
Yeah, I mean, the lads have spoken about the lineup. That was the next thing I would have said. Is it was the bench? I mean, the bench was just sort of has there been an injury crisis or an illness breakout that I wasn't aware of? That was my sort of. I was like, what? I wasn't aware that many players were out. I suppose. I feel a bit better that you've just said your lad hadn't heard of one of the players on the bench, because when I was preparing for this podcasting, I don't recognise that name. I don't recognise. And I I'd probably say I keep a good eye on the sort of the under 21s and the academy teams, and I hadn't spotted that name at any point. So yeah, it's an awful reflection, isn't it, on where the squad is at. That is, we have a couple of suspensions at the back, and this is what we're left with. A couple of injuries in midfield, and this is the bench that we can field. It kind of harks back to Leeds away, sort of opening down the Large those years ago, when you sort of looked at the bench and thought this is pretty dire. The difference then, of course, was we actually still had, we had some good players in the starting 11 who could keep us out of complete danger. But that's what it reminded me of, looking at, Rawlings, Pond, Genzo coming in, and I wondered whether, to an extent, are they just, presumably they're just filling seats. Realistically, they're probably never going to get on. So yeah, I was really surprised. I was just really surprised because I hadn't realised that, we knew that Mosquera was out. We knew Agbadou couldn't play. I'm not sure what was going on with Totti, whether he was injured or what, or whatever. But it kind of, that to me was sort of just a surprise, going, well, I knew two were out, but I didn't realise sort of it was that bad. And yeah, I mean, it just takes away any option of changing the game, really, doesn't it? We're so limited in terms of options that if it isn't going well, what can we do? I mean, Mane clearly did well when he came on and made a difference, but other than that, we're not really bringing on players who are particularly going to make an impact from what we've seen so far.
No, it seems an awful lot, Gav, on a comment we've had here about the squad depth from Maximus, right? Talking about squad depth has been off for several seasons.
Yeah,
and a thought he's putting here about only keeping 3 of this squad. We might need a brand new start. I think I remember a conversation we had, one of your first pods that you did when I was hosting, where we were actually relatively happy that we were starting to get something on the bench in the middle of sort of the VP era last year. The bench, I think, I don't know if you agree, but how thin the bench and the squad depth is now, I think just shows how much Bosun have sold the team. I think that shows it in the most, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you spoke about the group chat earlier, and I put that picture in, didn't I, of the poster of the player that we had from 2 years ago, and it was Neves, Moutinho, Neto, Cunha, Nunes, Kilman, Aït-Nouri. I mean, even in that picture, Semedo wasn't in there, João Gomez wasn't in there, and Diego Costa wasn't in there, and we've gone for that, that list of players to look what we've got now. You know what I mean? We've got an out of form Strand Larson, who's probably the poster boy of the team, you'd say, him and João Gomez, and then an unfit Tolu, and those are your best players, aren't they, realistically? So to go from that team there to what we've got now, it's criminal. It's criminal, and it's why we're in the position that we're in. There's no two ways about it. We are where we are. The table reflects it, and the squad reflects it as well, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think you've addressed the elephant in the room that I was going to come on to next. JSL, I think he ran out of any kind of rope a couple of performances ago, but yesterday, for a lot of people, seemed to be the nail in his coffin for how we're feeling about him. What overall is your thoughts on our number 9?
I didn't mention it because this was coming up, but I was crying. I so really wanted him to pick Tolu from the start. I don't really care if he's not fit. He's got to be doing more than JSL is at the minute. Even if you can give him, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and then throw JSL on the end, or anybody else, I don't really mind. But that was the biggest one for me. When you're looking through the team, you go, Strand Larson starting again. You go, he's just not been good enough. I've said it before. He's not. I mean, I reckon his running numbers are probably okay if you really dug into it, but he's not gambling. I think there was a moment in the second half, Mane beat his man, and he's seen his beat his man. He's like, I best get in the box. Instead of gambling and trying to be there proactive, he's reactive. And then, I mean, obviously there was a bit of a cheer when he went off a couple of weeks ago from the South Bank, but that when he picked up the ball for the penalty and he took it off Toller, and everybody, there was not everybody, but a lot booed. There's even one bloke behind me says if he scores, I'm not celebrating, I'm booing him, because the performance was that bad. He didn't deserve to take that penalty. And then, I mean, anybody could have told you he was going to miss. There was no way he was going to score that pen.
Yeah.
Never in a million years. I think I even saw it on Arsenal. It was an Arsenal Twitter page says, "You bottom of the league on 2 points. Smash it. What are you doing? Just hit it."
Yeah.
I mean, he probably will play next game, but he shouldn't be, because, like I say, even a half fit Tolu's got to be better at this point.
Yeah, I think Ali, I'll come to you in a sec, mate. But one of the things that was, because of how poor the first half was yesterday, in particular, quality from both sides. And it turns out that Brentford only needed to turn up for about 15 minutes in the second half to see us off. I did what I tend to do, which is an old-fashioned, just pick a player to stare at for a bit. And I was doing it with my lad. And I know last year we joked that at times Jurgen Strand Larsen was Jurgen Stranded Larsen. But the joke that my 10-year-old came up with yesterday is now he's Jurgen Stand Larsen, because he doesn't move. And I think that was a pretty perfect summation of his 90 minutes. Ali, what was your thoughts on someone who is, as Jay said, he is supposed to be our talisman? He's our 14 goals last season in his first season in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's just summed up his season, didn't it? I mean, he scored one penalty this season, and sort of his reaction of when he scored that, he was sort of giving it to the North Bank as if that was sort of where we beaten it, and it's just he seems to have an inability to read the room at the moment, and I can only assume that it could be a couple of things. Tolu clearly he either isn't fit or he isn't fancied by Edwards, and he thinks that he can play Larsen into form. But you're now at the point where that is not, it hasn't happened, and he's had enough time for it to happen. So he's going to have to take him out the firing line at some point. I think that was one of the surprises of the starting lineup, wasn't it? That Tolu wasn't starting after he scores against Arsenal. Kind of naturally think he would then get the shirt for the next game. You could understand Mane perhaps not starting because of his age. It would be, you can kind of understand that, and he can have that impact off the bench. But Tolu has started a couple of games in the cup. He has actually started games. I was surprised that Larsen got another chance, and it's just, as the lads have said, he's so frustrating because of his inability to hold it up. His inability to just hold the ball up. Don't get bullied by centre halves. I mean, thinking back to sort of the Burnley games and things where he gets so easily knocked off the ball. He goes down all the time trying to block, and the fans aren't. Not even his own fans are clamouring for a free kick because they know it's not a free kick. He's just not being strong enough. And yes, the penalty was just pathetic. It was just pathetic. He's clearly waiting. He's waiting for Kelleher to go. Kelleher calls his bluff and just stands still and says, "Well, I'm not going to dive. You're going to have to set. You're going to have to go. You're going to have to place it." And he should know Kelleher's too good a goalkeeper for that. He's not. Kelleher's good, and he's got a good penalty record and all the rest of it. That was just. It just showed such, again, an inability to read the room, and whether it's the goalkeeper he's facing, the sentiments in the crowd, let Tolu have it. He's got more confidence than you have. You're not in the great place. I think he will now. You'd have to believe he comes out of the team now if Tolu is, unless he's actually injured and can't be in the squad next time. I can't now see what good it does to anyone for Larsen to start again next week. I don't see where there's an advantage. You almost be better off playing Hwang up there on his own and running some players behind him, bringing Arias in or someone. That's almost as where you're at. And I think at this point, you'd be better off trying that than persisting with it.
Yeah. There was one particular incident, Gav. I the only time I got out of my seat in the entire game is when Strand Larsen, I think it was 1-0 at the time, and we had a break. And the only time he held the ball up and laid it off, and then he was barely touched by Collins, I think it was, that was sort of up his backside.
Yeah.
And we were breaking, we were gone. And he did not get up off the floor to be the extra man. He stayed on the halfway line, rolling around like he was trying to get someone sent off when we're 1-0 down. That kind of, I think we've had a few comments here from people like Joe Green, who has mentioned that there's a lot of people that have tried to say that, he doesn't get the service, but, since the West Ham game in the Cup, he got himself into positions to have crosses fired at him. I just thought I'd give you your chance for your little say on Jurgen Strand Larsen and where you are with him right now.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, part of me is in that doesn't get the service group, to be honest. But I completely understand the frustrations of the fans where the hold-up play. He said in an interview last year, didn't he, saying, even though I'm 6'4", I can do more. I do more than just hold the ball up. That's not really my style of play, etc. And I think at this moment in time, because we're not playing well, those are the basics that we need right now. You know what I mean? And he's not because he's not doing it very well at the minute. I think people are just, digging him out, and I understand, to be honest, because we're just trying to get a win, just by grit. And sometimes you just got to hold the ball up and get players into play. And he's not doing that at the moment. And then just on the penalty, I think, look, Ali and Jay both said as soon as he picked that ball up, I think everyone knew he was going to miss. Everyone knew he was going to miss. And going forward, I think he needs to go out the team now. Not so much because Tolu's that much of a better option. Because let's be real, Tolu, he'll hold up the ball a lot better. He'll win the flick-ons like he did when he come on. But he's not mobile. He's not quick. He's not going to chase the ball. He's not going to beat a defender. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Larsen, he's not running down the channels." Tolu can run down the channels. He's not getting that ball. I guarantee every centre back that he faces is going to be quicker than him and will get the ball before him. But in terms of holding it up, winning the flick-ons and stuff, he'll do that fine. But Strand Larsen just has to come out now because he's in a rut. He's in a rut. Mentally, he's not in a right place to be playing at all, full stop. So it's not, for me, it's not even about ability and what he's doing and what he's not doing. Mentally, he's just not there. And he's not there mentally, he ain't gonna perform. At least Tolu, when he comes on, he actually shows a bit of enthusiasm, at the very least. You know what I mean? So like the comment just said there, the fact that Tolu got cheered for winning the header, and that was because Larsen hadn't won anything, had he, really, in the air that whole game. So I understand the whole he's not getting the service, and that is true. Because Tolu will go through the exact same thing. He's not gonna get any service either. Just because he's on the pitch doesn't mean he's gonna score 3 or 4 goals. But at the end of the day, Strand Larsen, he's just not doing anything. He's doing more damage than good at the minute. I think that's the only thing you can say.
Yeah,
I don't think much of Tolu. I don't think he's a brilliant striker.
He's not the answer.
But he's not now. But he's
anything.
a better option at the minute, in my opinion. And I think as much as anything, Larsen probably needs a bit of protection and take him out of the team. Because if Tolu takes a penalty and misses, nobody's really bothered. But because it's Strand Larsen, they want him lynching, and it's because
he's got the target on his back, hasn't he, at the minute? So the best thing for him is just to take him out the fire. And to be fair, I reckon he will come out now, as long as Tolu isn't completely can't play half an hour. I think he needs to be taken out the firing line, definitely.
I think just something I really want to touch on before we sort of we'll gloss over the game, but we will talk about it. Is I have often come on this podcast either as host or as a pundit and have lambasted Hwang. I thought yesterday he genuinely played very well in a bad team. I felt like he was making some incredibly intelligent runs. So I lied earlier when I said that I only got at it once. There was a run in the first half that Krejci, I think, it played the ball over, but there was no one in the middle for Hwang to pass it to. The difference between the effort levels of both of them, I mean, Hwang's effort has never been under scrutiny from me. But Jay, what did you think about Hwang yesterday? Because I know you've mentioned that maybe it's worth just him playing him up front.
I don't think he was particularly good, but he looked brilliant.
Yeah.
He literally just
That's
by
probably
putting
a
himself
fairer
about.
assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, that pass that Krejci played it down the line, he got his body in between the ball and Collins. It was, and Collins who bullied Strand Larsen all game, and Hwang gives him a better 50-50 than Strand Larsen has. Says it all.
Well, we're not talking about, are we? You know, Van der Berg and Collins. We're not talking about the Premier League's, you know, biggest, most aggressive centre halves that JSL can't stand up to, and it's such a terrible indictment of him.
Yeah, but Hwang being your best player of the day, that says everything, doesn't it? And he was, to be fair. You can't deny that. Can't deny the fact that he was the only one that was actually getting involved, looking like something he's gonna make something happen.
It's a low bar, but he was. But
yeah, exactly. The standard, that's the standard, isn't it? Right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I guess we will just touch on the game in general. I know for me, Ali, something that I was muttering under my breath to no one, because no one was interested in listening to me, especially not in the first half. But it felt like in the whole game, it didn't feel like Wolves were the home team. And I think if you see some of the possession, I think maybe seems to flatter us, the fact that we maybe had 43% possession. Sort of your thoughts on the game in general, and maybe let's talk about that first goal where someone that we've kind of lauded in a bad team, Krejci, this year, but a real mistake from Krejci on the first goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean the game seemed to. You know, we've had the same thing again, sort of 0-0 at half time. I mean, the first half was to two bad teams. Second half, we come out and again, I mean, we don't know what he's saying to them at half time or what the plan is for these second halves, but it was coming, wasn't it? You know, Salah had pulled off a couple of saves, but you could see the goal was coming, and you can see they're petrified. The goal itself, I mean, it's another one, and this is. I mean, it must be. It's happening every week, isn't it? It's a goal that no other team can see. From a cross like that, we've got three centre halves playing, and the ball is allowed to bounce on the 18-yard box. That is it's just comical. And you know, Krejci's caught in no man's land. So clearly, there's been no communication between him and Bueno as to who is going to win that ball. Bueno's gone with Igor, hasn't he? He's kind of gone in with him, but has then ducked out of it, and then the ball bounces in between them, which is just ridiculous. And it's an easy goal. And it's just that thing of no other team concedes that goal. We concede the same sort of goals and the same chances over and over again. If I watch another time, a player cuts inside and crosses the ball, and somebody's made a run in between our centre halves, like Mount did it for United, and if I see that goal again, it's just over and over again. And it's just infuriating. Why are we unable to deal with that? Every other team in the league can deal with that. And that is one of those, it's a basic thing. That is, at the very least, you can be tough to beat. Teaching a team to defend fairly well is not, I don't think it's that difficult. You can make yourself hard to beat. And we're just not. And we're still not. And that goal was just I mean, the whole game kind of sums up the recent, Edwards' tenure so far, which is gets to half time at 0-0, comes out, and there's just nothing there. The other team gets on top. You can feel the goal coming. And it comes from a ball up in the air that it just can't bounce there. It just has to be. You've got three. It just can't. I can't understand how it could possibly be allowed to bounce there, and then obviously it's an easy finish, isn't it? It just sums up everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Gav, of course, Wolves are really good at giving teams, players that haven't scored for ages, a goal. King Lewis Potter obviously hasn't scored, I think, since February or something this year or something stupid. And he picks up 2 goals yesterday. The second goal, almost a carbon copy of the first goal. But I think I mentioned earlier that it felt like Brentford in the first half kind of matched our energy, not overly interested. And then for 15 minutes in the second half turned it on. And all of a sudden we thought, they look like world beaters. And this was without Damsgaard, who I think is their best player. But your thoughts on both goals, mate? Yeah,
I think first half, they didn't really get out of first gear, did they? And they probably realised they didn't need to. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, they made a few changes, didn't they? Look, that wasn't really their strongest team on paper. Like you said, Damsgaard was on the bench. But yeah, like Ali said, as soon as that second half came, they peppered us, and they saw made two big big saves. That Kevin Shard should have scored that header. Really, I think he might have been offside. Was it marginally?
He was.
Yeah, but
Was
still,
He
it's
looked.
you know,
He looked it in real time. I've not watched it back.
When I watched
I
it back this
saw- I
morning on the highlights, it looked like he was just on.
Oh,
he
fair
was,
enough.
he was just on.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, like Ali said, it was kind of like that Mason, that little run in between the centre backs in the middle of the box, exactly like Mount. You know, they seem to loop over all of them, and it's a free header for him there. That should have been 1-0 really. Lewis Potter, I think he had a chance before he scored his first goal. So they had chances even in the first half. Saul had to pull off a big save then. And the second goal, the first goal, shocking, poor. It looks every time you watch, it's one of those goals. Every time you watch it, it gets worse. You watch all the players, and in the second goal, he's been allowed to casually stroll into the box. No one's picked him up. He's on his own. We've got two Brazilian CDMs that are meant to be picking those sort of players up. You got 5 fucking defenders. You got 7 players in the box, and one man's walked in and on the penalty spot all alone. Like, it's daft, isn't it? We've got 5 defenders in a fucking back 5 with 2 Brazilian CDMs, and he's been able to walk into the box on his own. That's mad. It's mental. It's honestly, it don't even make sense. Even saying it does not make sense. And yet it's happened. And that whole game is the sum of the past season. The goal that we conceded, shit. Missing the penalty at the end. If we have to wrap up our season in one game, it was that game. 100%.
Yeah, Jay, I think something that has been mentioned a couple of times in the comments, but of course, Little Dan, as always, has done a hell of a lot of work into getting this podcast stream set up. But this question here is probably what I'll come to you. Ali's talked about, making ourselves harder to beat. We actually got quite a few set pieces yesterday, and that's kind of the bread and butter. Gab's just lost his temper, rightly so, about realising how bad yesterday's game was. I think it just hit him now at 9:05 on Sunday, the day after. But Jay, why is Andre, our CDM of CDMs, our main set piece taker?
I don't know. Anybody else got an idea? It must be literally nobody else can kick a ball in training. That's literally it. I think he had a shot from one, didn't he? I mean, I don't know if anybody else has watched.
Very generous, I think, to call that.
Anybody else has watched the warm-ups, and Andre is not. That's not one of his strong points. Having a pop at goal. The one thing, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, the one thing we throw at Lopez is he's like sort of off the ball and getting on it, but technically he's a good footballer. And he's got a good left foot. Why he's not on set pieces, I don't know. They must see something in Andre. Maybe it's because they want to keep him as the deepest player for the inevitable counter attack that comes from the set piece that doesn't actually go anywhere.
Yeah.
My only thoughts is he's like 5'7", isn't he? So therefore he's no use in the box. So they might as well use him somewhere else, maybe.
That's it. Yeah, Lopez is he's 6'2", so yeah, stick him in the box as well.
Yeah.
I think something that is something I was really, really keen to talk about, Ali, was how very honest and scathing our longest serving player. We'll ignore the fact that he left to go to Spurs and that strange Atletico Madrid cameo that he had. But Doc, I think weirdly for me, because you would think now at sort of the age he is and the experience he's got, he should really be nowhere near the starting lineup. But for me, he seems to actually have brought a little bit of something to our team. But for those listening on the podcast later on, we've got here on screen Doherty's headline, really, Ali, of "Do we want to be remembered as cowards?" So he has been very open in the media about the fact that Wolves need something. We need something, is what he said. People can see our situation. People will want to come in and help. And I think on the other slide is sort of his mention about, not wanting to be remembered as cowards, and we can't take the easy option. One thing that I thought maybe is worth talking about, Ali, is how he said in the media that we are scared to get into a winning position. What are your thoughts on Doc's very open and candid conversation there.
Yeah, I mean, before I heard it and I saw that he'd been interviewed, I was almost sort of didn't want to listen to it because I'm sick of hearing from them. I'm sick of hearing them saying we're going to fight, don't give up on us. We're not doing it. I'm absolutely sick of it, and I just thought I don't want to hear a single word from any of you anymore. I'm past the point of listening, and then obviously I saw it and thought, well, that's a slightly different tone. And I suppose I'm completely speculating, but is he showing us there a bit of what is actually going on behind the scenes of what the dressing room is like, and does that explain? I've said on the podcast before about how I don't think this group of players is as bad as 2 points. I don't think they're much better. I don't think it's a squad that should be getting anywhere near the top half, but I don't think it should be on 2 points. But I wonder whether a lot of the players who are left, the ones who haven't been sold, are sort of looking around them and they've just lost hope because they know the club is going nowhere. It's soulless. They know there's no hope, and they've lost hope in the club, so they've got the motivation has just gone for all of them, and I think then that plays into this what Doherty's talking about, which is the people who are here. We need people who actually want to be here and want to fight and try and get us out of it. And clearly there are people here who don't want to be here and they want to go. Yeah. And they, players like Strand Larsen, Gomez, Andre, who presumably were bought into the club and sold something that isn't what it actually was cracked up to be. And you've seen the interview where she sort of breaks the last, we're looking at Europe, or Hobbs, whoever says it. Clearly that's just all bullshit and was never been in there. Right? And so I think what Doc is there is probably giving us a hint of what is happening insofar as there's players there who do not want to be there, and players like Andre who are looking at January as a way out, and they're just going through the motions, get to January or get to the end of the season and get out of here. And Doherty's trying to is saying to us, look, those are the players we just don't. He's trying to get them back on side and say, look, how do you want to be remembered here? Do you want to be remembered as a player who helped, who fought for the club, got them out of one of the worst positions they've ever been in, or do you want to be remembered as somebody who jumped ship? And I don't know if any of them will care, but I think that's where it comes from. I think that's what he's saying. And the bit, I'm glad you said the second part, because I saw the second quote, which actually I thought was just as sort of revealing about they're petrified to win, and you kind of watching and go, yeah, we can see that. That is exactly what it looks like when you. It explains why away from home we seem to play. There's less expectation. They can sit back. They seem far more comfortable. Whereas when they're at home and they're expected to actually try and win a game of football, they're absolutely petrified and they don't know what to do. And so I thought it was really interesting to hear him say that, and I thought that felt very honest, because I think that is exactly what is going on. Because we can see that, we can see it on the pitch. You can see that's how they're playing. Yeah. But yeah, it is interesting to see that he's kind of suggesting there are clearly people there who are not, how do you want to be remembered here? Do you want to jump ship in January, or actually you're going to stick around and try and get us? I mean, they can't get us out of the mess we're in now, but at least give us something to cling on to for next year. Give us some pride. Don't go down with 10 points or 5 points or whatever, 2 points, frankly, at the moment. Give us something. But I mean, it's a different tack, isn't it? It's not that we're fighting with this. It's actually pointing some fingers there at people without naming names, isn't it?
Yeah. Jay, I think. Do you think only Doc, with what he brings to our team and who he is to us, is he the only one that we probably would listen to this from?
Maybe it falls as if anybody else come out and said that, you'd throw him under the bus, wouldn't you? Because we haven't ever seen anything from the majority. Maybe Joe, but otherwise, really, they've all been part of a bad team. At least Carmen, at least Doc's got some credit in the bank from over the years. But I mean, that part about Kerry leave, for me, they can all go. I'm not bothered anymore.
Yeah.
Strand Larsen, I mean, even look, Zhao for the second goal, he busted a gut to get back in, but then just let's Lewis Potter walk off him. And it's it's not all about effort. Sometimes you have to be switched on as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, Andre's such a good footballer, but we're not seeing it from him. I think Hang, like I say, put some effort in, but really probably a bit limited. Look across the team: Totti, go. Agbadou, he can go. Two keepers, they can leave for all I care. I've got nothing for any of these lads, other than, like I said, maybe a little bit João Gomez, but way he's playing at the minute, I'm not even bothered if he left in January. They can all do one. Cowards or not. It probably Doc's one of the only lads that I'd like to keep around.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Gav? We'll wrap that part up and then move on to bits.
That's why Doc's my captain, in my opinion. I said at the start of the season, Doc should have been captain. I don't know why they went through all that bullshit of having 4 captains or making Totti captain. Didn't make no sense. I said at the time, absolutely fucking stupid to have 4 captains in the beginning. I think that's the season up, to be honest. Making stupid decisions like that, messing around with the songs, pre-game and stuff. There was too much going on when there wasn't, when there's a lot of shit going on the pitch as well. But yeah, I think the only problem that I've got now with this team is that there still seems to be a lot of interest in these players. Like Gomez has been linked with United. The links about Larson today with West Ham. Moller Wolf hasn't really pulled up any trees, but Brighton and Villa, the plan has been interesting there. So it makes you think, like, what are we doing so wrong at the minute to not get a tune out of them? You know what I mean? Like, everyone else seems to like these players. On paper, they all seem fine. But we're making them look like League One footballers here. And I can't get my head around it.
It's obviously something. I mean, like Brentford, you might find Brentford aren't very good. You might find Brentford in the argue.
No.
Good. And they could have scored 5 second half. It literally could have won 5-0. We were that bad. But like I said, we got decent. Like, I think Santi Buenal's had a good career. Krejci's a good footballer. We all see decent footballer.
Yeah.
And it's just so soft.
If Andre goes to like Manchester City and he ends up being there like deep playing like 6, not deep playing, but like their 6 as like a Rodri replacement, he might end up being all right. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, he's fucking classy, but the City have picked up a gem here. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's what's going to happen now. A lot of these players will go out, and you'll see how good they will end up being.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think that does take us quite nicely on to just a couple of other things to talk about. But we've talked about JSL being one elephant in the room. But we are now talking about the fact that we have changed manager. We have had Gorgeous Rob now for a good few weeks. And not a lot's changed. Ali, do we think that, will Rob Edwards see out the season? And if so, is he the right man for us now?
I think it depends. He can't lose every game to the end of the season and keep his job. I just don't see how that... I think you have to treat it as in, he should be judged as any other manager would be judged from now to the end of the season. Now, he's going to get some rope because it's not his fault, the squad he's inherited. But going back to sort of what we said before, they're not... On paper, this team is not a 2 points out of however many. It's not. Yeah. They're not... Again, we're not saying they should be 13th, 12th, or we're not necessarily saying that, but they should not be that far behind. I looked at Burnley's lineup yesterday. We shouldn't be that far behind them. We look at Brentford's lineup. We shouldn't be that far off them. They should not be playing us and having the chances they had and could have scored 5 or 6 second half. That shouldn't be happening. So I think he does get some leeway, and that's why at the moment sort of it's only just started to crank up on him. If there was a new manager coming in and you lose 6 or whatever he's lost in a row, you'd be like, this is an absolute car crash. But there will be a lot of people now thinking, okay, it's not his fault. This is all for next season, and he'll get some leeway. But I don't think he can. You can't go all the way till May and lose every game. And this was the risk that he took. That has he taken it too early? Should he just waited till the summer and gone in then? This is the risk he's taken. That actually, with that, he can't get anything out of these. We keep losing games, and actually the club is forced to say, well, actually, we expected a bit better than this. We know you're preparing most of the next season. You factored that in. But come on, it's got to be better than this. And as much as sort of, we're talking about how many of these players we want to be here next season, somebody's going to have to come in and buy them. So they're going to have to go somewhere.
Yeah, true.
So it's really hard to predict how many we actually let go, how many go and how many don't. And if Edwards has been there and he's lost every other game, he's lost every game. And actually, there's a fire sale of, your Andres, your Gomez, your Strand Larsons, maybe those guys go. But if there's still a core of those players who are here this year and they won't go and they can't leave, you can't have Edwards managing them if they're not playing for him. You can't. It just won't happen. So I think at the time of the appointment, it felt like, well, we haven't really got anywhere else to turn. Who's going to want this job in the current state? So that made sense at the time. If he loses every game between now and the end of the season, he can't go into next season. Again, you've got to look. You'd have to look for someone else. Wait and see. I mean, he's got some credential in the Championship for what he did with Luton the first time and what he was doing all right at Middlesbrough this year. But he's also got the sort of the second season of Luton when they went down. So we could be that. That's probably more reflective of where we are and what position we'll be in. I think for now, give him a bit. I would be giving him a bit of leeway, sort of until January. But you can't have too many more losing 2-0 at home to teams like Brentford and not putting up any sort of, and deserving to lose 2-0 and not it being sort of, well, I actually play quite well there. The Villa away game, Arsenal away, I thought we looked all right, but we can't be playing at home and losing to teams like that comfortably. And decisions around sort of players like Strand Larsen and things, I think people will start getting on his case if things like that don't change.
Yeah, and the comments are doing my job here, Gav, but I think a really good question here from Michael Burge is, should Edwards be getting more out of these players?
You probably have to say yes. And like I said, on paper, they're not bad players, are they? In theory. So you'd hope that I mean, that's kind of the job he came in to do, wasn't he? Was to get more out of them than what Pereira was. And at the minute he's struggling. But I think the problem that we're going to have is if we do go in with him next season in the Championship, this losing momentum that he's got with this group of players is going to be so hard to turn around come next summer. I can see it just rolling in. If we lose that first game in the Championship next year, we are in big trouble. I know that's crazy to say, but going off the back of this season, going straight into the Championship, and you lose, let's say he gets 1 point in the first 3, that's a bad sign already. So that's the only concern I have. And to be honest, at the end of the day, like Ali said, no one else was going to take this job. No one in their right mind was going to take this job. And he was stupid to do so, really, in the position he was in with Middlesbrough. He shouldn't have left. But it's hard to see, even if we sacked him now or sacked him in 3 months, who the hell would come? I know there's talk of Nuno now that Jeff Shee's gone and everything, and there's rumours of West Ham not being exactly happy with him. I think if we did go down, that would be the only thing. If you could get like Nuno back, I know it's a long shot, and people wouldn't want him to come back in this, that, and the other. But just for the vibes of what we're going to need for next season, because it's going to be toxic next season. We're going to get relegated. I think we can all admit that now. But that summer transfer window and everything building up to that Championship season next year is going to be toxic. But if you had Nuno in charge, suppose it helps a little bit.
Yeah, and again, thank you to everyone in the comments. You're doing my job for me. I can probably sit back and relax here, Jay. But other than the OPG liking your T-shirt, Jay, we've also got Greg Hickman here saying that one of the things that we did, or we were told about Rob, was not just how gorgeous he is, but also that he was a good man manager. Greg here in the comments is saying that he doesn't see it, and I would agree with that. What are your thoughts on sort of his man management? What are you seeing in our glorious leader?
It's not getting the best of the players, but I'm not really sure what the best is. It all comes down to me. I think he was on a hiding to nothing, really. You said maybe you've got to give himself sort of February time, get a couple of players in and see what he can do. But like he's picking Hoover. He can't be picking Hoover. I don't care how bad Chachu is. You cannot pick Hoover. And Strand Larsen, he needed dropping. For like we said earlier, for his own sake as much as anybody else. He needed dropping, and he obviously hasn't seen that. It's easy for us to say, isn't it? Sitting here on a podcast, we're not paid the money that he used to make those decisions. But I think Southampton did it, didn't they, last season? They brought that, I don't know what his name is. They brought that manager in when they sacked Russell Martin.
The geography teacher.
Yeah, and they were fully aware we're going down. We brought him in to try and like prepare for next season, and they were that bad. They sacked him. They had to sack him at the end of the season. They had to because they just couldn't turn it around. But it's really difficult. I think Maximus Wright said it in the comments. Just he's probably the right man at the wrong time. If you brought him in, probably 2 months later, and you give him a bit of leeway into January, and you know he may have done. It's hard. It's hard. He may have done a bit better with his first 6 games, but he was on a hiding to nothing in my opinion, and he's probably taken the wrong job. I think that's the main thing. It's the job, not the manager, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think something that worried me yesterday, Ali, was that it felt like, although we've talked about how weak the bench is to the point we've got 3 actual children on the bench, and one of them has played a few games, but the other 2 haven't. But we were back to, and Maximus Wright has put him in here, and it's triggered me, Gary O'Neill. But we're back to, I remember losing my mind on a podcast a year or so ago when Gary O'Neill didn't make any substitutions, and how he didn't try and change anything didn't affect the game. And that was yesterday was the first time I felt that with Rob, is that he saw the game falling away from us in the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half and didn't do anything, didn't make any changes whatsoever. Even just, let's go to a back 4. If we're going to go down, let's go down swinging. You know, he kept it the same.
Yeah.
Where are you on, Rob, before we touch on the protest and say goodbye to those in the chat?
I totally agree with that. Sort of on yesterday, you know, as I said, Brentford were up. The goal was coming, wasn't it? And you always think if the goal's coming, you need to change something. If you don't change it, it will happen. You need to try and, even if it just stops the game for 30 seconds while you make the sub, to try and stem the momentum, but make a change, because we clearly were stuck. We were penned in and we couldn't get out. And Brentford were peppering us. It's like anything, isn't it? I want him to succeed. So at the moment, I'm still sort of, you know, prepared to say, well, this is very early days. It's not his group of players. You know, give him the opportunity. The one thing we can take from being relegated this early on is the ability to prepare so early on for next season. That is the only thing we can take from this. Is the only positive. It's not a very good one, but you can prepare now. You can start looking at who is going to be here next season, who isn't, and how are we going to play. And you can actually start preparing for it now. You get almost like an extra transfer window as well. You get an extra window in because you get in January to start preparing for that. I was the last person. I was really anti this kind of approach. I've given up now. So I think that's probably what they could do. And as Jay said, sort of start selling them if you need to. It doesn't make any difference now. You might as well let them go. The only positive you've got is you can now start preparing. You can now start thinking about, okay, who's going to be here, who isn't, and how are we going to play. And I think Edwards probably deserves that chance. I do think he should be getting a bit more out of this current squad, though. I don't think, as I said, I think there is a core, you know, as you said, Gomez, Andre, Larson, maybe Krejci and Agbadu will go off to good, decent teams, and they'll go off and they'll do well. We know they'll do well. Yeah. And we'll look back and go Muller Wolf possibly, and we'll look back and say, what the heck will we do with them? And I think it comes back to that they've joined a club that's just lost hope, and the players who are there just like, you've joined an absolute shit show here. Because the chairman comes out and says, if you want to win trophies, don't support us. So like that's the message coming from the top of and every player around you who's any good gets sold. So I think it's partly that, and the momentum of last season has just spilled on. I think Edwards should be getting more out of them, and he is. And as I said, he hasn't got a complete free hit. He can't lose every game to the end of the season. He's got to show us something before, you know, in the next few months that shows we're starting to make improvements ahead of the following season. Yeah, I think that's the point. And if we get to sort of March time, February, March time, if we're losing every game till then clearly he's not going to be the person. I think that would be the time where you're going, actually, we probably need to again look elsewhere. But as Gav sort of says, I mean, would you look at me? You're then back in the position of who would take it. Who knows? Yeah.
There's a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about winning breeds winning, and we saw that last year, of course, with our 6 in a row, and VP was down in points in the moon underwater, wasn't he? And everyone, it was all rosy. And we do now seem to have the exact opposite of that, don't we? We have losing breeding losing. Something
Sorry,
that was,
sorry.
go on. Joe.
Just a little quick one. Obviously, it's all been negative, but a little positive on Mane. He thought he was really good yesterday off the bench. And that's one thing that Edwards has done probably over VP is give him a chance. It's just so positive. Like he picks the ball up and he gets his head down. He might not be, he might not be brilliant, and he might not be the best. He might not even turn out to be a Premier League footballer, but somebody who's willing to get forward, run with it. It's like a breath of fresh air. Just thought you needed to shout out. That's all.
No, and that's a really good point. Obviously, where I sit in the family stand in the Billy Wright, we see everyone warming up, and I can guarantee, as a very overweight and unfit 40-year-old, Tolu he's far too close to me as a professional footballer than he should be. But there is a very big difference with how Mane warms up to literally everyone else. He is interested. He's watching the game. He's really stretching. He's desperate to go on. He kept looking towards the bench all the time, trying to catch someone's eye. He was definitely, whether or not you say, Jay, whether or not he's good enough, we'll find out. But he is at least desperate to get on that pitch. He's desperate to do something with the ball. He wants to move forward, and that's the only thing I would say about Fer Lopez too. Whether or not he's powder puff, whether or not he's strong enough, he does always at least try and go forward. He obviously gets pickpocketed far too much, but both him and Mane have that ability to go forward. And as Maximus Rice actually just put out, someone else that was really desperate to get on the pitch yesterday was Enzo. He also was really trying to catch Rob's eye when he realised he wasn't coming on. He looked gutted in front of us and was visibly upset that he didn't get to come on. So I think that's a really good point. And on something positive, of course, we started the show with Jeff's departure. We had another display yesterday, slightly different to the 15-minute boycott that we had a couple of weeks ago against Man United. We had a display of banners at the 18th and the 77th minute. I think quite interestingly, Gav, I know you're a South Bank native. I'm not too sure where Ali and Jay sit, but it looked impressive on TV. There's still, for those watching on YouTube here, we do have our club with the Wolverhampton club crest, city crest, rather than the Wolves badge on there. We have seen, of course, that we had some sway, we'd like to think, over Jeff leaving. Where are you on sort of on the banners being raised, and do we obviously still need to keep banging that drum, don't we?
Yeah, we still have to keep putting the message out there. I think a lot of people will probably feel like they've job's kind of done now that Jeff's gone. But obviously with Fosun, and we don't know. I think the main concern is now, okay, Jeff's gone. That's part one. The part two is, what is the ambition of Fosun? You know what I mean? What is the bigger picture now? I mean, I suppose it's kind of good to see that they're not happy with Jeff, because they could have easily turned around and said, you know what, Jeff, we trust you. You just crack on with it. Just let us know how you get on. But obviously they've turned around and said, look, this is unacceptable. And they've decided to make a change of some sort, whether it's just to take Jeff out the firing line and keep him involved in the other position. Like we said, that remains to be seen. But just on the protest yesterday, it was good. It was shown on Match of the Day. It was shown on all the national television and whatnot. So it's got the coverage that it needed to, and I suppose that's the purpose of the protest, isn't it? To get it out there.
Yeah, Jay, what's your thoughts on that protest? And is this sort of where we should be going next, do you think, with banners and visible signs now, as well as not turning up maybe to the start of games?
Yeah, I think so. There wasn't enough people sort of backing it before the game. When you see on social media and stuff, there's a lot of people criticising. I think it's probably about right, especially with I think the time is perfect with Jeff Shee leaving, because it does. With January coming up, you kind of want to give him a little bit of leeway. If like say they've got rid of him because they're not happy with what he's doing, and they're willing to back the team and back Rob in January, then really you can't complain too much. But you still want to push the fact that we're not happy with the way that the things have been run for so long. It's like I say, it's visible, isn't it? It's a nice little visible thing. Old Goldpack have done a good job. Second shout out to the night. They've done a really good job, and I think that's a good happy medium. Because if we'd have boycotted and for the first 15 minutes, it probably won. It doesn't look great again. But then too, he's like, well, we've kind of half got what we wanted, and you're still not showing up to the games. It does look like you're kind of against the team a little bit then. So I do think it was a good happy medium.
Yeah, Ali, just final word on the protests, and is this, do you think, the way to go forward now with some more visible things as well as obviously the banners and things that we've had in the past?
Yeah, I think so. I think like any, it's really hard to find the right balance, isn't it, between what is sending the right messages, how you go about it, how that then impacts the team. It's a really difficult balance to find, and it can be really divisive. But I think you said it right at the start. It's important to keep the message going. Just because Jeff Shee has gone, now it might be that they got rid of him because they're genuinely unhappy with him, or it might be that they're opening new offices down in London. He's much more into esports anyway. We're going, Jeff, there's a nice little move for you here. You're getting a load. You don't need this aggro. We'll move you into there. You'll still have your fingers on everything that's going on at Wolves. You just won't be visible. And you're still part, if they were, the cynical side of me and the side that, hearing Jeff's interview the other week and everything that comes up, you hear from Fossen. To me, the trust has gone, so I don't care almost what they say. I'll judge them on their actions. And, I think if you look at their actions over the past 5 years, sort of trust, when somebody shows you their true colours, believe them the first time. And I believe it. I've seen what they've done. So I don't really take much. I don't read too much into what they say. So the fact they're saying, well, we're moving Jeff here, he will have no involvement, that could be absolute bollocks. That's likely to be absolute nonsense, and he will still have. So I think that emphasises that actually we do need to carry on, because getting rid of Jeff is just one part of it. Now, hopefully they prove me wrong and they appoint a proper CEO who knows about football, and and they show a genuine interest in wanting to take the club back to the Premier League and invest the money that it will need, employ the right people, listen to the right people. That you'd be delighted, wouldn't you, to be proved wrong? But I think more likely is they don't give a shit. Otherwise, we would never have got into this position in the first place. They wouldn't have let Shee go on for as long as he did, and they wouldn't have in the first place put someone in charge who hasn't got a clue about football. And so I think it is really important that the protests carry on and that it keeps getting. And it's great that it's in the national media. We get the coverage. I'm not going to say what I think is right or wrong in terms of how you go about it, because I think it's important that, well, I don't feel qualified, but I think it's also important to listen to what other people want to listen to what everyone feels is the right way of going about it. I think it has to continue, because yes, this has happened, but until we see the January transfer, until we see the right people being appointed, you've got to keep the pressure on, because otherwise it just becomes, if they go, if everything backs off now, they'll go, oh, we got away with that. Okay, that was all right. We've written it out. They've shut up now. We've got rid of Jeff. Happy days. We can just carry on, and that can't be allowed to happen. They need to continue to be held accountable, because that is just one small cog in it in terms of getting rid of shit. It needs to be no. If you're going to be here, you need to back the club like you did. That's what we expect of owners, and to appoint the people who actually know what they're doing. And if that isn't going to be the case, then get out and give it to somebody who will do that. So I think that's important, just to keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a unified voice. I think, as you touched on, Jay, is what we need now as well. There's no point in fighting or getting into unnecessary beefs on Twitter, or we don't like the way people are saying doing this. I think it needs to be a well targeted but meaningful continuation of this party line that we should have as Wolves fans here, that just Fosun have sold us a dream and then took it away. And to touch on what I think Greg and the guys really did a great job breaking down that Jeff Shee interview, but that when he mentioned that relegation is a technical word, that is, we can't have anyone else in that comes in next if Nathan isn't the long term. We need someone who understands football to the point of, at least he understands that there's a relegation and promotion, and from a business point of view, it makes no sense for us to be out of the Premier League for too long.
No.
So let's fingers crossed we don't go the way of Blackburn and other teams that have gone down this route. So we need to remain unified and stay on the case. We can't just be happy that one bloke's gone. He wasn't the sole problem. He was a big problem, but he wasn't the sole problem. So I think that should wrap us up. We've just done just over an hour, like I promised. We will, of course, be back after Christmas. There's no Boxing Day game for us, but we are back away from home, I believe, after Christmas. But we will have a preview show before that, and of course a review show after that. I want to say thank you to everyone in the comments that's been keeping things going. Thank you, Gav. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Ali, for giving up your time this evening. Really appreciate it. As always, the Wolves Fancast is brought to you in association with the Sports Social Podcast Network, FC Quizda app, and the Boston Coffee and Vending Company. For those watching and listening, have a great Christmas and up the Wolves.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?